You're listening to probably the best fitness and nutrition podcast, where we give you the most important fitness and nutrition advice you will ever need to know. Probably. Make sure to like us on Facebook and Instagram for fitness at Roof Fitness and for nutrition at Stacked Coaching. While you're there, give us a 5-star review, rate, review, and subscribe, and share it with your friends. Hey everybody, welcome to probably the best fitness and nutrition podcast. We're still working on that.
Nope.
Doesn't really roll off the tongue.
It doesn't roll off the tongue well.
Maybe it's just because it's new.
We could call it the PTBF and NP.
I'm telling you.
Nope.
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 So we renamed the podcast. Great. I think it's fantastic. With that being said, I was telling Bradley and Emily, I used to mark everything revolving around the podcast in my calendar. I would abbreviate it, WTBS. And now I'm like so confused. I'm still using that, but
change is hard sometimes.
Yeah. Necessary, but not always easy.
Well, I think we give a lot of good information, probably. So
We think.
We think. I tell you what, if it's wrong, we will correct ourselves later.
Yeah. I've already done that.
Yeah.
Go listen to the Good Foods versus Bad Foods podcast.
We will not die on our swords. Right? Is that what you say? We have a lot of euphemisms today that I am saying incorrectly.
We're working on it. We're working on things. Little bit better approach.
Sarah, Emily, and I'm Bradley. You probably know us. We are in your cars very often. I am trying to work on my distance from the mic. While they also work on their distance, we're going to meet in the middle.
Thank you.
So how's that for a compromise?
I like it.
I do compromise. It's not often, but it's rare.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Not often, but rare.
Nope.
That's the same thing.
I'm just stuck on the idea of someone like listening to us in the car and looking in the rearview mirror and suddenly when we're in their back seat after you saying we're always in your car. I'm like, whose?
Oh, I thought of that song. I always feel like somebody's watching me. Mm-hmm. I used to be able to sing okay, and now when I record happy birthday
He's like, this is new.
What? When?
Now when I record happy birthday messages and
Happy Birthday
text
is the
them,
most butchered song.
I always apologize and say, well, I used to be able to sing this well. But it's only when I'm with you. When I'm by myself, it's horrendous.
Do you know that? So for people who don't know, I have a background as a singer. People will call me on my birthday and say that they will not sing to me. I take offense to that. My birthday is June. Please call me. June 20th.
June 20th.
Call me and sing to me, please.
Sarah, when's your birthday? June 6th?
18th.
Well,
Wait.
close enough. That's
Heidi's is a little before ours.
Yeah.
But
yeah. All right, so today is the second part of a 3-part series on macros. Last week, we learned about the wonderful world of protein.
What's funny?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just in the giggles.
Okay.
Is it in the giggles? This week, we are learning all about carbohydrates and why they're important to you, where we can find them, and why you need them.
Okay.
I think you just calling it the wonderful world of proteins. My head went back to being in grade school and watching Donald Duck and Math Magic Land. Like that is where my head just went. Like we're teaching you, buckle up, get your notepad ready.
Probably going to teach you.
Probably. So, Emily, why are carbohydrates important?
Well, they are important, but they are actually not necessary. You can live without carbohydrates. Ask anybody that has done the carnivore diet. They are not essential. But I think that carnivore diet, I don't understand very well. But yeah, carbs, I think most people think when you say carbs, they think bread, pasta, and while bread and pasta are carbohydrates, there is a wide variety of carbohydrates that include fruits and vegetables. And I am like, a lot of people do not know that.
Yeah. So tell everyone what your favorite carb is.
My favorite carb is a beet.
Yeah.
I love beets.
Beets are carbs.
Mine is a bagel from Dave's Killer Bread.
I like those too. Bagels used to be my favorite food.
No, I think sweet potatoes.
Sweet potatoes are your favorite carb?
Yeah, they're pretty versatile. I make them like 10 different ways. I'm a huge fan. I love sweet potatoes.
I think mine are blackberries. Like when they're
Riley
like
loves blackberries
perfect.
too.
I love blackberries too.
I have some in the
Yummy.
fridge right now. They're great.
Yeah,
Can I go back to something real quick?
sure.
So you said you don't understand the carnivore diet.
I don't understand people that like want to live
Well,
that way.
essentially it's an elimination diet.
Yeah.
So can you live off of it? Yeah, right? Because you are getting protein, you're getting fat, you're getting a lot of micronutrients if you're eating the organ meats. But you have to be eating the organ meats. You can't just eat a steak every day and be like, I'm carnivore. Or I'm getting is it optimal? Probably not. But
Is it sustainable?
maybe not. But you would have to
Maybe
define
not.
what sustainable and optimal are to that person. And that would be based off of your wants and needs. So like everything else we say in Stacked, is the carnivore diet good for you? I don't know. Maybe. It depends. All right. Back to carbohydrates.
Yeah, so I think with a lot of people that we work with, specifically with Stacked, they move their bodies, they exercise, and carbohydrates, like we said, they're not necessary, but if you are someone that is very active, they are very important.
Yeah. So they are our body's preferred source of energy. Can you derive energy from other places? Yes, that's what the ketogenic diet essentially does. But they are our body's preferred source. So if carbohydrates are available to convert to energy, that's what your body will do.
I don't know if anyone has seen pictures of Emily, Sarah, and I all together post-workout with our shirts off. It would probably break the internet if you did. But our bodies are fueled by carbohydrates. Bodies by carbs.
Well, mine is Body by Bagel.
I love it. That's a good one. That's
Or
strong.
Built by Bagel. Built by Bagel.
Built by Bagel and Built Bars.
And Bill Barr. I was going to say the same thing.
It should be like built with the little copyright symbol next to it. Built by Bagel.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people think that carbs are the enemy in terms of weight gain, or they think that the only way to lose weight is by restricting carbs. And we talked about this in the good foods versus bad foods episode as well, but that is simply not true.
I think the reason people think that, and the initial reaction off of people switching to a low carb diet is because when people think carbs, they're thinking bread and pasta, right?
Yeah.
So when you eat a high carb diet, you're eating a lot of processed foods, but the other thing you're probably not doing is monitoring your fat intake. So essentially it's a moderate to high fat diet with high carbs, which means your caloric intake is through the roof. So that is the main difference between what we try to teach, or if you have a carbohydrate diet made off of simple foods.
Right. And if you look at the literature for diet, when they're comparing dietary strategies, if they are controlling calories as well as protein intake, then weight loss is the same. And weight loss may initially be a little bit more on a low carb diet, but that is not because of fat loss. That is because of water. So there are water molecules associated with every gram of stored carbohydrate. And so initially when you go low carb, you might lose a lot of weight real quick, but that is water weight leaving your body.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Oh,
talk
and
about
I just
fat
wanted to
next
say too, we talked about this a little bit in the protein podcast, but the reason why it's calories and protein that are controlled and not just calories is because the thermic effect of food that you are getting from the protein intake is affecting the energy out portion of the equation. So energy out is your BMR plus your NEAT, which is your energy, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, all of the moving around that you're doing outside of working out.
Your BMR stands for basal metabolic rate. That is your metabolism.
Yep. Your exercise activity, and then the thermic effect of food. So without that protein being controlled, you will get different results. So when we're thinking about it from like how we coach stacked clients through macros, we tell people if you want to dial things out, like you can not focus on all 3 macronutrient targets, just focus on protein and calories. And if you want to dial things out further, just focus on calories. But that's why.
Yeah, and can we kind of go pros and cons next?
Of?
Carbs. So like, what are some negative side effects of carbohydrates?
Side effects?
Well, I mean, kind of going back to what you were saying before, depending on your source of carbohydrates, you might have some sensitivities or intolerances. Like wheat is a really big allergen for people. So if you're eating a lot of that, then that's going to have a negative effect on your weight.
Nightshades.
And how you feel.
We kind of see nightshades affect a lot of people, I feel like, more so than gluten.
Yeah, I see a bigger problem, not with just nightshades, but with high FODMAP foods.
Yeah.
So that's the fermentable carbohydrates that's affecting your gut. So people with IBS that think that they're quote unquote eating clean and doing good things for themselves, apples are a high FODMAP food and can affect a certain population of people very greatly.
Yeah.
Can I just say that the longer I am a nutrition coach, the more I learn, the further I get into it, I hate the phrase clean eating.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And it used to be
like
the eat clean, live
aggravates
clean challenge. I hate
the
that I
hell
called
out
it
of
that.
me. Yeah, well, I eat clean. Oh, really?
You eat dirty, Bradley.
I do eat dirty.
Well, yeah, it's not about eating clean because we are now learning how clean foods can really negatively affect people. And it's more about eating simply and eating what is right for you.
And when you say negatively affect people, it's the psychological impact of like calling things clean versus what's the alternative. Like,
yeah. And I mean,
or
I know
high quantities of certain foods. Like if you opened up a jar of coconut oil and you just started going ham on it, well, that might not be so great.
Yeah.
Your skin will look beautiful though.
And I mean, I've told this story before, but we did the 800-gram challenge, and I love bell peppers, and it was a really, like, I was eating almost an entire one a day because I could I could chop up a bunch of peppers. It was a great snack because I could eat a ton of it without adding a bunch of calories to my diet. It filled me up. I liked the taste. But I was like, I feel bloated. I'm eating so well. What is wrong? My weight is going up. Like I've substituted some higher calorie foods for lower calorie foods and I'm still feeling satisfied, but I feel gross. And it was the nightshades. I was sensitive.
It could also be the uptick in fiber that you were experiencing too. A lot of people think like, oh, the more fiber, the better. And while fiber does do good things for your body in general, like your gut health likes fiber, your stool health likes fiber, but too much of anything, and I mean literally anything, will cause you discomfort. And too much fiber, that's not an exception.
You're not going to poo.
Yeah. So and people think I'm not pooping. I need to eat more fiber.
No.
And that's usually makes the problem worse because if you think about the role of fiber, it's to bulk stool, and you don't want to bulk stool if you're already having constipation issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we see that in clients a lot as they become hummers. Okay, so as our clients become hummers and we increase their fuel intake, or they move into carb cycling and now all of a sudden their carbs are up there, right? If you just smash like fruit and high fiber vegetables all day, you're going to have some issues. It's going to be tough. The other thing about that is we talk about it breaking down in your gut. it takes a little bit longer to break down. That food volume will stay in your stomach longer than a lot of other foods. And so people, even if you're like, well, I hit all my macros, I eat a ton of fruits and vegetables, why did my weight go up? Well, you just got a lot of food in there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just chilling.
And it slowly digests, which is why fiber keeps you fuller longer.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Do you want to talk?
I love grapefruit. I think that's my favorite.
Okay.
Taking it back.
Grapefruit, beets, and blackberries.
Squirrel.
Do you want to talk about carb cycling?
Yeah, we can talk about carb cycling.
So what is carb cycling?
So we have, for us, it's typically 3 high days, 4 low days, where you go between high carbohydrate days and low carbohydrate days. In some instances, it can boost fat burning performances. In some instances, we use it for body recomposition. In other instances, it can boost performance.
And compliance.
And compliance. And you say why? Is because that gives you some flexibilities to enjoy a little bit more life. I love ice cream
Yeah.
on my high carb days.
Or if you want to incorporate alcohol, and I know that is controversial, but people will do it, right? So it's cool to give people the ability to do it and stay on plan.
Well, and with the way we do it at Stacked, like we look at habits and quality of food before we even dig into macros. So while I have clients that will, okay, we have a birthday party this weekend, I'm going to make that one of my high carb days so I can have a piece of cake and some alcohol, it's still controlled and they're still filling all of the other gaps with foods that are going to move them towards their goals.
Mm-hmm.
Can I jump on something? Because we do consider alcohol to be a carbohydrate.
Yeah.
And while we've talked about this before, alcohol is kind of its own thing, but we classify it as a carbohydrate for tracking purposes.
You can classify it as a fat as well. Protein is too important. That's why we don't classify it as a
But if you
protein.
classify it as a fat, it will
Yeah.
eat up all your fats and you'll kind of be miserable.
Yeah.
So just do it as a carb. Just trust us, okay? But anyway, back to alcohol. Emily, can you lose weight with carbohydrates, most of your carbohydrates being made up of alcohol?
You can.
Yes.
You can.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
It just won't be as enjoyable, probably.
So
Probably.
the answer is yes, you can lose weight.
Yeah.
Yes, you can fit 2 glasses of wine
Yeah.
into your macros every day. Now, here is the difference. Can you reach optimal body recomp with wine making up a portion of your carbohydrates every day?
Probably not.
Probably not.
No, and will it affect how you feel ultimately?
Yes.
Yes.
It'll affect how you feel. It'll affect how you sleep. It'll affect you hormonally. It'll
How
affect
you-
how you perform in the gym.
And then the other reason why is because we forget that carbohydrates also fuel muscle growth.
Yes.
So if
From food.
From food.
Yeah.
So if your goal is to get jacked,
Mm-hmm.
you need to eat all of your carbs. Not drink them. You need to eat them.
How many carbs a day do you eat on your high days?
400
400. And is that more carbs than you've ever eaten in your life?
in my entire life.
Yeah. And from a weight perspective, like leanness, where are you?
Well, today I weighed 169. Yesterday I weighed 168. Ironically, yesterday was a low carb day for me, but I know what happened. And just to explain to people what happened is I had a pretty busy day yesterday. And I brought my food to the gym, which kind of limited the amount of food I could eat. So when I got home to cook dinner, I had a massive amount of food to eat, protein and carbs. So after dinner, I still had 100 carbs plus and 100 protein plus. So I ate half my day about an hour or 2 before I went to sleep.
So when you woke up, maybe you were full of food.
I was full of food. I did not have a bowel movement. I still haven't had a bowel movement.
Bradley is full of shit right now, y'all.
I am full of shit right now, literally.
Not probably.
Literally
full of
But
shit.
yeah, I mean, my calories have increased massively over the past year. And I went all the way from kind of 187 when I myself started the stacked program down to 167. The lowest I got was 166. And now I pretty much hover around 168 plus or minus a couple of pounds. But I mean, if you look at my pictures, I'm pretty jacked right now.
Yeah, you are.
You want to tell everybody what I just did?
He walked into my office. Y'all, I have my own office now. I kicked Bradley out of my space. He has his own office. I have my own office. It's very nice. But he walked in after his workout and he was like, I got a nice pump in. Just wanted to show you. He looked like a freaking superhero. He was like all veiny and muscly. And
I walked over here just to show her
me.
my shirt
Nice.
off.
Neat.
Right. But anyway, so where were we going with how much carbs I eat? 400. My low days I eat 235.
yeah, so I just want to paint the picture that like carbs are not making you fat. Here's what I see, because the first step with stacked is just like show me what you're doing. And what I generally see from most of my clients, not all, but from most, is low protein, high fat, unintentional carbs.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And when you put some intentionality around it, and it's just like major game changer. But the carbs are not the thing that is your enemy. Carbs can be very, very beneficial. And if you want that picture painted even more for you, go check out the episode that we recorded with Coach Claire and her experience eating all the carbs.
So one of the things, why we choose maybe a higher carb, lower fat that we direct people to. And honestly, like, it's different for everyone. It's based off of how they're eating, where they are, how they want to eat. That matters.
Preference.
Okay. Preference does matter. So for example, here, Sarah, what's your fat intake right now?
50.
50?
70.
And I'm 60. And then Claire is like
Ooh,
70.
I get the most fat.
Claire is like 75. So it's different for everyone, right? Like, I want to put that through.
Probably gets angry with me about my fat intake.
I do get angry.
I
I
was
really
making-
get
I
angry
made,
about
like,
it.
We had a conversation about
jasmine
this the other day.
rice the other day, and I put like a tablespoon of butter on it because I was trying to up my fats.
Well-
and he walks by and he's like, bitch.
It's already unfair because if I have to eat 400 carbohydrates in a day and I only have 60 grams of fat, my fat is already spread thin.
Right.
So if we're comparing my 60 grams of fat to her 60 grams of fat, technically my 60 grams.
70.
No, but if you were 60, if we were even, my 60 is still less per meal.
Right.
Right.
Right?
Because you have to spread it out more.
So then this bitch gets to 70, and I'm like, well, it's like a buffet. It's like a Chinese buffet here. Go ahead. Just whatever you want. But back to what I was saying, the reason we kind of direct people more in a high carb, lower fat is it just does provide more flexibility with eating.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you are a higher fat and lower carb, then there's more calories per fat, so you're kind of restricted to the volume of food you could eat.
Here's the thing that I see, and we just talked about all of the pieces and parts that go into the energy out piece of the equation. And we talked about how carbs are your body's preferred energy source. Usually when you're going super low carb, you don't have the energy to move as much. And I'm talking about like twitching and fidgeting. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I see is when we increase those carbohydrates over time, people just naturally move more and they feel more energized. Well, why? Yeah.
Is this a good time to talk about metabolic flexibility?
Do you want to?
Well, I mean, I know you had some thoughts on that. No?
I mean,
We'll save that for the fat podcast.
okay.
We'll save it for the
We
fat
have time.
podcast. We have time. One more week. Look
You-
forward to metabolic flexibility in part 3.
Like going from a carb burner to a fat burner and being able to like switch
Yeah.
those systems. Is
Yeah.
that what you're getting at?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. We'll save that for part 3
As a teaser.
as a teaser. Okay. All right. Anything else to add about carbs and the beautifulness of carbs?
I just want to say that in terms of the how many carbs should you be eating, that is the macronutrient that we have the most flexibility with, right? You think about protein, there's like very specific protein ranges in relationship to your body weight and your goals and whatnot. Fat's the same thing. It's a percentage of calories that we're kind of working on. With carbohydrates, the literature is like less than 500 grams of carbs, like anywhere in that spectrum. So when people see what we do, that's why we're playing with carbs the most, to see like what works best for you.
500 carb day.
I don't think you'll ever get there.
I think with
challenge.
You don't get it as much with protein, but especially with carbs and fat as well. No macronutrient is the enemy.
No.
Right.
So just remembering that. And then if you are doing this on your own, like Emily said, we all see with for the most part with our clients in the beginning, just inconsistency. So if you're trying to figure out on your own what is going on, be consistent.
Yes.
Just whatever you're doing, be consistent with it and see how your body responds.
That's the biggest piece of advice I've given to people over the past few weeks is like, be consistent, create routine, you know?
Yeah. I mean, so much of Stacked is in the beginning enforcing the slow and steady mindset because we want instant gratification. And if we don't see things move within 2 weeks, we get discouraged. But sometimes 2 weeks is like just enough time for us to gather some data to make an informed decision, much less see significant change.
I'd be willing to bet if you looked at our 3 like logs for the past 6 months of tracking, that there would be less than a 5 gram variance day to day on each macronutrient.
In terms of
average.
What we're actually getting versus our targets?
Yeah. But like day to day. So like Tuesday is X. Wednesday, we see a lot of people 10 grams more in this or 7. I would say we are less than 5 day to day differential between
and that
what
comes
we're
with
actually
practice
doing.
and experience and
minus fancy sushi dinners because that was all over the place. That day was wild with macros.
That day was wild. So all right, y'all, well, we appreciate it. Look forward to part 3, fats.
You should just cut it there. Fats
Fades
fade out.
Peace out.
Bye.